Good evening, welcome to The Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories, there can be no other. Donald Trump makes history as the first U.S. president to be convicted of a crime to still win his second term in a stunning political comeback.
Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Babes Romualdez, and U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Mary Kay Carlson, insist Washington's commitment to the Philippines remains ironclad and that nothing should change under this new presidency.
And the driver of that SUV that bore a Senate protocol plate that used the EDSA busway has apologized. Senator Raffy Tulfo confirms that the passenger is related to a colleague of his in the Senate.
And just like that, Donald Trump is president of the United States once again. About an hour ago, Trump finished with 279 electoral votes, while Harris got 223, although the votes are still being counted, but at this point, it is statistically impossible for Harris to win the White House. Let's take a closer look at the map. I need to...
It was at 267 a while ago.
279, 223. And the first thing I want to say about this map is how badly the polls got it once again, because in the weeks leading up to today and last night, the polls had said, listen, the 7 swing states are up for grabs. They're in deadlock. These are Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona. And guess what? Donald Trump swept all of them, right? I mean, all this is white because that's still being counted, but that's more or less a given because so far they've counted about 80% of it. The interesting things here to know, Pennsylvania, we've always said, or at least the political pundits have always said, whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the White House, and that is true in this case. Surprisingly, Trump flipped Georgia, which voted blue last time. So the so-called blue wall is gone. He's demolished it. It was a red, as one of our guests earlier said, it became a red tsunami. That
Not just a red wave, but a red tsunami.
Remember how we were talking about how it was going to be close and that we might have to wait days for the results? Well, it's not. It's, you know,
overwhelmingly in favor of the Republicans.
Exactly.
Everyone was
little
saying
over
it could
24
take
hours.
weeks to count. It could take a week to count because it was too close and there might be a recount. Well, none of that happened.
That's what the polls had us believe, that the margins were razor thin. That, in fact, in the last New York Times Siena poll, just before the elections, they had said that Harris was leading in Wisconsin, Nevada, Wisconsin and North Carolina. And guess what? North Carolina was the first to be called for President Trump today. And I think at that point, people knew that the momentum had swung the other side.
Well, there's also another question now about how the polls got it so wrong. And a lot of people are asking, is this the end of polling? Because Trump overpolled.
Well, the victory is being described as sweeping, and it's a landslide, and by other publications, a paradigm-shattering victory. But the Democrats have been saying that we still have votes to count. Former President Obama says it takes time to count every ballot. That was what he tweeted.
That is true. Again, we're not finished with the vote counting yet, but this is a race to 270, right? And he's there. He's gone past 270. By the way, Trump is also, I believe, projected to win the popular vote, which is very interesting. The last time he won, he did not win the popular vote. It was just the Electoral College. So that is I think, a loud referendum on the Biden presidency.
Well, I think he is poised to be the first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years.
Wow.
2 decades.
And only the first president since Cleveland to do this.
It's a historic day. There's a lot of firsts happening today.
I think you made an interesting point that this was more about a repudiation of the Biden presidency and the state of the American economy right now, as opposed to the threats that a Trump presidency could bring to the Constitution.
Because consistently people were saying the economy and immigration were, it was always the economy, democracy, abortion, and immigration were the top issues for Americans, with the economy right up there at the top. And I guess the sense is that they were better off 4 years ago.
But it seemed that the abortion rights were not as potent as they wanted it to be, as the Democrats wanted it to be this time around. Kamala gaining only 3 points from that.
Yeah, that was surprising too.
Well, a lot of are saying that it's not really the president who gets to dictate this anymore.
Except they're also on track to win both houses
Yes,
of Congress.
they
So
are.
that will be interesting to watch as well.
That's actually the most interesting part. This is a sweep.
Well, hours before he officially became the 47th president of the United States, Trump faced his supporters in West Palm Beach, Florida, and already declared victory.
I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. We also have won the popular vote. Winning the popular vote was very nice, very nice.
He made that speech when he was 267 electoral votes in, 3 short, but now, of course, we know that's over 270. Trump performed better than initially predicted and seems to have swayed many of the undecided voters. For instance, in the traditionally blue state of Illinois, which Harris won, many had voted for Trump anyway.
I did not expect it at all, and to be honest, like going into the election and this whole election cycle, I wasn't sure I was wanting to vote for President Trump. I realized that this was probably the best choice. I didn't think this would be the result, but I'm happy it was, and I'm happy we got to it quickly. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about the inauguration. I think both Democrats and Republicans have a huge problem with this. We saw this on January 6th with the Republicans' insurrection. We've seen the riots during the Black Lives Matter movement, but I'm very excited to see where this is going to go. I'm really excited to see the policies he's going to institute in his first days in office.
Amid all the celebration at the Trump camp, Democrats are yet to hear from their candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris. Harris was supposed to attend an election night rally at Howard University in Washington, but that watch party ended on a somber note, with supporters told that the VP will instead address them the day after. Filipino-American leader Gabriel Young, and several other Democrats could not help but feel disappointed.
There hasn't been a presidential candidate in a very long time, whether victorious or defeated, that didn't address their in-person supporters on election night. And for me, it is such a stark contrast because there was so much hope and joy attached to the election. And now all that hope and joy is quickly dissipating in a quick flash when we need it the most, and our leader is not showing, which is really portraying a really bad picture, in all honesty, onto us Democrats.
And as soon as he claimed victory at the polls, congratulations from world leaders started pouring in for Donald Trump. President Bongbong Marcos said, in part, "President Trump has won and the American people triumphed. And I congratulate them for their victory in an exercise which showed the world the strength of American values. I am hopeful that this unshakable alliance, tested in war and peace, will be a force of good that will blaze a path of prosperity and amity in the region and in both sides of the Pacific. This is a durable partnership that the Philippines is fully committed to because it is founded on the ideals we share, freedom and democracy. I have personally met President Trump as a young man, so I know that his robust leadership will result in a better future for all of us." Over in China, Foreign Affairs spokesperson Mao Ning said that our policy towards the U.S. is consistent. We will continue to view and handle China-U.S. relations in accordance with the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. And on X, formerly known as Twitter, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Trump's impending victory history's greatest comeback, a new beginning for America, and a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America. Netanyahu ended his post with the phrase, "in true friendship." On the other hand, the Palestinian militant group Hamas told Reuters, "We urge Trump to learn from Biden's mistakes."
Let's check out the mood in the United States now that they voted in new leaders. Jovi Francisco is reporting to us live from Washington, D.C. Good morning to you, Jovi.
Good morning, Gretchen. Good morning, ladies.
It is the morning after the U.S. elections. We do know that Washington, D.C. is part of the Blue Wall. They've traditionally voted for the Democrat Party. How is the mood over there? Even from last night that Vice President Kamala Harris failed to show up in Howard University. How is the atmosphere in Washington, D.C.?
Gretchen, I witnessed that that moment when it was announced that she will no longer appear on stage for that rally with the supporters. So papunta pa lang sana ako kaya lang sinabi pa na hindi na darating. So ang ginawa ko ay tumuloy pa rin ako sa nakasalubong ko yung mga pauwi na noticeable sadness sa mukha ng ilan sa mga nakasalubong natin pabalik sa city from that area dito sa university na iyon at ngayong araw na to, kung Filipino community naman ang pag-uusapan, there will be an opportunity for us to meet and talk to some of them later tonight because there will be a COMELEC, not the COMELEC from Washington D.C., but COMELEC from Manila. They will be having a briefing later at the embassy. So that's an opportunity for us to talk to them and ask them their sentiment or their reaction to the results of the elections here in America or in the USA.
We do know Washington, D.C. by itself represents 3 electoral votes, Kamala Harris winning 92% of the votes there. But what's striking to me is where you're standing at. You're in front of the Capitol, I believe, which they say, correct me if I'm wrong, was that blockaded out of fear that something might happen in case the former President Trump loses?
I don't know if you can see the barricade behind me. So it's steel barricades from the whole perimeter, I guess. I went around last night looking for a better view of the Capitol and talaga nakaharang na yan, Gretchen. Pero mukhang walang use, dahil yung nanalo naman ay, or yung nakakuha ng maraming boto sa eleksyon na to ay yung dating kinakatakutan nga na kapag umangal na may dayaan, baka yun yung mag-udyok na magkaroon dito ng protesta ulit tulad ng January 6 noong panahon ng labanan naman with Biden. So hindi na yan kailangan, although talagang super binantayan to ng pulis na talagang may nag-ronda dito oras-oras at ito nakalipas sa 2 gabi at least sa ating nakita, Gretchen.
All right. How about the expectations for this day? Kailan kaya magpapakita itong si Vice President Kamala Harris diyan? Meron na ba tayong naririnig bukod dun sa pagtitipon ng mga Pilipino?
Wala pang pasabi, Gretchen. We're waiting for that kasi imposible na sa isang malaking lugar mangyari yon dahil hindi na doon mangyayari sa university. So we're waiting kung maglalabas lang ba ng press release, pero I don't think so. Ang tingin ng mga taga rito ay at magpapakita at magkakaroon ng prepared statement tungkol sa naging resulta ng halalan. By the way, Gretchen, last night, while America was counting the votes, we were able to interview our Ambassador Babes Romualdez at our embassy here in Washington, D.C. So he told me that it is part of his mandate or the embassy's mandate to prepare for an immediate interaction kung sino man or yung eventual winner nga nitong botohan na ito. Of course, I asked him about the effect of this political process in RP and U.S. relations, and here's what he told us.
We've had that since 1951, and I think that over the years it has even evolved into what we call an ironclad commitment coming from the United States and also a commitment coming from us, that we would like to make that a commitment that we are bound by our interests to be able to defend each other. And that's also the reason why President Marcos is pushing forward into modernizing our armed forces so that we can be an equal partner in this endeavor.
And during that interview, I zeroed in on the front runner, Donald Trump, at tinanong ko sa what if si Donald Trump yung manalo, kasi yung time na yun ay nagbibilangan pa lang naman. So ito yung kanya naging reaction.
What we're hearing, of course, the policy of Trump, the second term for President Trump would mean America first, which is one of his slogans. And so we take that to mean that President Trump would most likely encourage or having more American businesses relocate back to the United States. And we're talking here mostly of the businesses that are now leaving China for various reasons, and we are one of the recipients of this movement coming from China into the Asian Pacific region. But nonetheless, we do have the exports, meaning the exports from Asia to the United States. The Philippines and Vietnam are the top. They are the top exporters of our various goods coming from our country and also Vietnam, which gives you an indication that there's a lot more economic trade. And I think that will continue.
Siyempre, sinunod ko yung pinapa-follow up sa akin ni Regina, kay Ambassador. Ang sabi niya, kapag meron ng nanalo, ready na siya makipag-usap sa tatlong babae na nasa sofa ngayon.
Hey, Joey, di kami masyadong pamilyar, ano ba yung tradisyon dyan? Kailan ma-inaugurate yung si President Trump? Incoming President Trump? How long would we have to wait till it becomes official, and how long do we have to wait until maano siya? Siya ay
If I remember right, everything will happen in January. Tama, Reg. Sa Enero pa, tatapusin pa muna ni Biden yung kanyang term.
Okay, marami pa tayo actually kailangan na i-discuss, no? Because there are many worries yung sa mga kababayan nating Pinoy, yung mass deportation, pati syempre yung ibang polisiya. Pero nasagot nga ni US Ambassador to the Philippines, Babes Romualdez, yung tanong mo. Pero we'll let you go for now.
But also, Jovi, thank you for staying up all night, literally, to deliver us live updates from DC.
Hindi ka naman nasagot kahapon. You were asking pala about the weather. Yes, masyadong malamig kahapon hanggang today actually. So talaga ang mga tao rito ay parang pa-winter, hindi lang ng fall. So yes, it's malamig at walang tulugan. Pero ngayon pwede na matulog. Alam na natin ng resulta.
At mag-jacket ka. Mag-jacket ka kasi malamig dyan.
24 hours straight, Jovi stayed up to do the live reports for all the shows. So thank you for that.
Maraming salamat sa ating
See you in Manila.
Senior editor, our OIC, Joey Francisco, reporting to us live from Washington, D.C.
Well, I was at the U.S. Embassy watch party earlier where we got a chance to pull aside the U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Mayor Kay Carlson, and ask her about the outcome of the elections. And exactly as Ambassador Romualdez said, Carlson says nothing should change.
My counterpart and good friend, Babe Romualdez, has been in the United States for, 8 years now, I think. So he has been through a Trump presidency. He's been through a Biden presidency. So when he says he's confident that there's bipartisan support, we have been through a lot of transitions. In my 39 years in the State Department, I have witnessed transitions from Republican to Democrat to Republican and back and forth. And I am extremely confident that U.S.-Philippine relations will remain steadfast, remain steadfast friends and ironclad allies, as well as partners in prosperity, no matter who wins the election in the United States today.
The embassy watch party was attended by a wide cross-section of business executives, officials from the Navy and Coast Guard, as well as the diplomatic community. Now, specifically on the defense and military commitments, Carlson also said that the Indo-Pacific remains at the forefront of the U.S. interest and pointed out that the first Trump presidency had lent support to the 2016 arbitral ruling that favored the Philippines. One thing analysts say that might change dramatically is the U.S.'s policy on immigration, which is one of the main issues of this election and which might affect PhilAms.
When you look at the foreign military financing and the support for the U.S.-Philippine military relationship, it is as many Republicans as Democrats who are enthusiastically supporting the U.S.-Philippine alliance. And that goes across the board. Remember, when you think about the security situation here in the Indo-Pacific, it was under the Trump administration that Secretary of State Pompeo came out and lent credence and support to the arbitral ruling that weighed in favor of the Philippines with regard to access and rights at Yungin Shoal, for example.
Magkakaroon ng bagong wave of restrictions, no? And new policies that will constrain, no? Immigration to the United States, no? Even for those who are already there. Magkakaroon ng epekto rin, no, sa mga ibang kababayan natin, lalong-lalo na yung mga gustong mag-migrate.
Right, still in politics, but this time Philippine politics. Senator Imee Marcos has finally spoken up about Vice President Sara Duterte's tirades against her family. And she says their friendship remains intact.
Ano po kayo kay VP Sara? Ay, hindi naman.
Your,
Sasabihan lang.
pero your friendship remains intact.
Manang rin naman ako sa kanya.
Sorry, ma'am. Your friendship remains intact.
Oo naman. Dapat naman kasi ganun, di ba? Ang importante sa akin, nakakatawid ako kahit anong alyansa, lahat nakakausap ko, ayoko makikipag-away. Sinasabi matapang ako, mataray pa. O, totoo yan, aminin ko. Pero hindi ako pala away. Gusto ko magtrabaho eh. Gusto ko tapusin, di ba? Sa dinami-dami natin problema.
When pressed for further comment, Senator Marcos refused to answer, saying she would just rather move on. She also said that she did not get upset at Vice President Sara for threatening to dig up for her father's remains. But here's where their accounts differ. 2 weeks ago, VP Sara said that she texted Imee after her press conference, and the latter had apparently turned cold. VP Sara also said that a common friend of the two women had admitted that Senator Marcos was frustrated at her. For his part, President Marcos has refused twice now at different events to comment on the Vice President's tirades.
Up next, Donald Trump has reclaimed the White House. What does that mean for the Philippines and the world? We'll get insights of the UANP Law Dean Jemmy Gatdula right after the break. Keep it here on the news.
Back, you are watching the big story here on One News. Circling back to our top story, the U.S. presidential elections, where Donald Trump has staged a massive comeback. And joining us tonight to talk about what a Trump 2.0 presidency can bring is the Dean of the University of Asia and the Pacific School of Law, Professor Jemmy Gatdula. Good to see you again for the second time today. Because I bumped into you.
Third time.
I saw you at the Stratways conference. First at the U.S. election watch party, and then at the Stratways, and then the third time's a charm. So we now have the 47th President of the United States. Your initial thoughts, were you surprised?
No, not really. I think there were some polls already indicating there was going to be a huge turnout for Trump. There was a fair amount of energy with regard to the camp. And I think there were already indications beforehand that the Kamala campaign was a little bit edgy already. So, I mean, unless certain things happened that happened like way back in 2020, barring that, we were almost expecting this. In fact, I think we were expecting an electoral college vote of above 300 or something. Right now, I think we're still below 300.
Yeah.
But
the polls didn't expect that turnout.
No, there were some of the more accurate ones, especially the ones that got it right in 2020. I can't remember the names right now. We're really predicting a huge turnout for Trump.
If you look, though, on social media, which is where everybody's tuned in right now, a lot of people would say the Blue Party would win. Kamala would win with all the endorsements from Hollywood, from all the celebrities. What do you make of how that expectation shaped up versus how the reality ended up being?
Well, it depends on the social media that you were looking at. I think one of the better things that Elon Musk did was to convert X, Twitter, now X, into some sort of the Wild West in social media. So everything, all the information was really going out. And some of the surveys that would not normally be coming out in the mainstream news media were coming out on that particular platform.
So you're tuned in to X mostly?
Well, all of them. So.
I will admit, I am tuned into X.
Yeah,
very much so.
And Elon was saying you are the new media.
Yes, social media is.
He tweeted that.
Yeah, he did.
Hours ago.
He also went on Joe Rogan's podcast, right, which was widely publicized, and then he supposedly got Joe Rogan to endorse Trump last minute. I mean, do these vloggers, these influential podcasters, should we be looking at them with a different way? I mean, we've already seen it happening, their influence, but.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was saying earlier. I mean, I think people would be looking at a certain set of platforms, but I think for a specific political class, and you're talking here of Joe Rogan and the others, they were actually really tapped in to the mindset and to the pulse of what the politics are. And you're talking of other people like Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, and the others as well. And so, no, actually, again, I'd say the results were not surprising. I mean, it was something that we were expecting from even a few weeks back. I think from the moment that Trump appeared on Joe Rogan, and then the moment, I'm not being flippant, but the moment that Squirrel died.
Yes.
Do you think that was consequential? Because some pundits were saying that if that affects the polls, then it could also be the end of the dominance of mainstream media
and I agree.
holding the debates.
Yes, and I agree. With regard to the Squirrel, see Peanut.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it affected the undecided, because at this particular point, I don't think there are any more undecided, particularly in the last 48 or 72 hours. But it did, I think, generate a motivation for people who were thinking twice of whether or not to go out in the cold to vote, and then suddenly they would go out and vote. So.
Before we get on to the next topic, I just want to bring in another statistic, which is Joe Biden's exit polls on CNN, his approval rating. And this is closely related to this election, because in that latest poll, you'll see, if you could just flash it, there we go, that's the CNN poll. Only 38% approved of his presidency. This is essentially what we call the exit poll of the president. Not vast majority, but the majority are dissatisfied with his performance. And so we were saying earlier that this election seems to be a referendum on the Joe Biden presidency as well.
Yeah, which is like any other election that you have, whether it be the incumbent running or a fresh pair of opposition people running. It would always be a referendum on the party in power. And I think that was the problem that Kamala had. Because it was a really inconsistent message. She was trying to say that we have to go for change, but she was there for the 4 years that Biden, of course, was presiding over the economy and everything else. So that
she was not able to turn that around, even if she tried to separate herself from the Biden administration.
It's incredibly difficult. I don't know any possible way of an. It could have been good that if she could have just immediately said that.
Did you expect a sweep? In the swing states. I mean, Regina was showing it a while ago.
Yeah, well, actually, in a way, yes. And I kept telling myself, is this, in a way, some sort of possible manipulation by the media? But not to the level of the 1984 sweep that Reagan had, but somewhere around that level. So I think that Kamala was still able to hold on to certain states. Shows still the hold that the Democratic Party has on those states that they would still prefer to protect.
You know, so much has been said about this election, but there was this one show where I was watching, and they pointed out that a lot of the younger voters, like the Gen Zs, they don't really associate with a certain party. Meaning that they could vote either way because they don't have like allegiance to the Democrats or to the Republicans. And therefore, does that mean it's more of a personality-based things now? Are we voting outside like partisan lines?
Actually, the surveys that I'm seeing is that the Gen Z, the younger voters, tend to be, particularly the males, would go more for the conservative side. And you can see this across the board, whether it be on the church surveys. There's a liberal church faction, there's a conservative faction. most of the young people would be now. Why they're doing that is not something I am exactly understanding, but it's palpable. You could see it in across the board, particularly even in the legal profession that I have. So yeah.
Let's talk about what the implications are for the Philippines. First off, what do you think the relationship between Donald Trump and Bongbong Marcos will look like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very good. I mean, look at it this way. Trump exhibited a huge deal of patience with the other president, the previous president. And this time, we have a president who actually had a personal relationship with Trump. And I think he admitted it when he was a young man.
He said it in his statement,
Yeah,
pretty
in his
much.
statement. So I think, and there are a lot of how should I put it, similarity in the mindset, in the policy, security-wise, and all of that. So having said that, I don't think we should be worried too much of a radical change in policy. As far as policy is concerned, I think it's going to be the same, at least for the next couple of years. Now, the tactics, the way these policies are to be carried out, may of course have a little bit of the Trumpian flavor. He does have a flair for the dramatics and all of that. But one thing that we can, the benefit of looking at the Trump presidency, the one that's coming in January 20, the inauguration date, is that we have an experience of him from the previous 4 years that he was president. So we pretty much know the way that he will govern and so on.
It's less unpredictable.
Less unpredictable also because in the sense that this time he knows who to appoint. Because he himself admitted that the first time around when he came into Washington, he absolutely had no knowledge of who to appoint in the
But they say this time around that it might be a revenge administration, that he's out there to get the Democrats, and there are less people around him to keep him in check because of the anti-Trump in the Republican Party are gone. So
yeah.
How do you expect that second presidency to look like?
Also adding to that the fact that he's been battling a lot of legal issues the last 3 years. So it's a time for...
Well, the legal issues, that's another... With regard to the revenge thing, well, he has been accused of a lot of things, fascist, that he's Hitler, and so on. But again, we go back to the first 4 years. He never did actually any of those things. One good way of being able to expand your executive power is essentially to try to get into a conflict with another country. And that's how you actually expand your government. He never did any of that. In fact, he tried to pull himself out of the conflicts that you had. So essentially, he limited...
He did incite the rebellion on January 6th, though.
Well, we can discuss that because the evidence that has been...
For which he's still facing cases.
Yes,
yeah.
But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that as far as the statements that he made, when you actually look at the videos and put it into the context of the statement, he wasn't really saying he's going to be vindictive. He's actually, what he's saying is that he's going to apply the law. So if, for example, we're talking about with regard to immigration, he's essentially going to apply the law, which I think Obama and Biden, there was a law on immigration and they just refused to apply it. So what he's saying right now is he's going to start applying the law.
Does that mean that you agree with what Julay Tihanki was saying earlier, that it could get tighter for immigration, especially for Filipinos?
No, actually, and I'd like to, I mean, with all due respect to Julay, no, I don't agree. He will apply, because he said so, certain rules on immigration, but I don't think it should particularly worry Filipinos because we have been quite compliant as far as the rules are concerned.
There are a lot of TNTs.
Yeah, but not in the same level as the other countries are.
I think he also got a majority of the Latino vote, which I think says a lot.
Says a lot as well.
It says a lot about what they actually think, how he's going to handle these immigration policies.
Yeah, so I think as far as the Philippines is concerned, even with regard to the tariffs, and I mentioned this earlier during the strat-based thing, it's not something that we should be really worried about because of the fact that he will be targeting perhaps some of the other more, how should I put, malignant competitors that they probably face, and the Philippines is not one of them. And so actually the fact that he will probably raise tariffs on these countries serves as an opening for the Philippines to be able to go and export and offer its products to the Philippines as an alternative to these countries that he decides to raise tariff measures and so on. So.
Where do you think Kamala went wrong with her campaign? I mean, she was trying to speak to the middle class, and we do know that inflation is a problem, is a #1 concern amongst Americans. Where did she go wrong? I mean, if you take a look at Trump, they say his policies, economic policies, were favoring the large corporations, the big businessmen, and essentially his 10% tariff on Chinese products were going to drive inflation. Was it do those things really matter here, or was it just dissatisfaction with the current ruling of the Democrat Party?
It's really, I mean, it's one wouldn't like to put down someone who's already hit the mattress, but since you asked the question, I mean, there were really a lot of things that I think. Well, one of them is the fact that you do not campaign by hating on the other side. You probably would want to add more voters to you rather than alienate a huge swath of voters. Let's go on to the more perhaps controversial areas. I don't think Biden pretty much liked Kamala. The fact that Jill Biden, for some reason, started going out in a red dress early in the morning to vote. The fact that Joe Biden would suddenly start saying things like garbage as far as the Trump supporters are concerned, at the exact moment that Kamala was making a speech, I think, in the Washington Monument. These are things that all added up, gave a pretty much scattered
So
campaign.
negative politicking.
Well,
does not
Trump
work
did that
too?
too. Come on, let's be fair. He was quite misogynistic on the campaign trail. He was hitting Kamala very personally. So he's been known for his fiery rhetoric. But we're running out of time. I want to bring it back to closer to home, which is let's keep focused on the defense and security commitments. What about Taiwan? That's still a big unknown because they didn't talk much about China. Yeah, they touched on it a little bit, but there's a little bit of nervousness now in Taiwan now that Trump has won. And I'm going to play you a soundbite if you could just listen to it.
He's telling Taiwan to pay for, our own protection, right? The semiconductor industry, things like that. So I think there's just more unpredictability, and this is already a tightrope that Taiwan is walking. And he can be very provocative in general with his rhetoric. So we don't know where it's going to go. Maybe he's going to be like, allow more officials to visit and just like, and I think from my view, in terms of the geopolitical cross-strait relations, I think mainly it's the rhetoric also that can heat things up.
Okay, so the idea that Taiwan might get invaded in this presidency is not so far-fetched.
But that's regardless of whether it was Trump
Correct.
or Kamala or
Correct.
Yeah,
so now that we know it's going to be Trump, how do you think he might deal with this? And in relation to that, how he might deal with Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, we have a set of precedents on how he would behave. And so we look at the way he responded, for example, to North Korea. We look at the way he responded, for example, to Iran and some of the some terrorist groups that decided to do certain things that were against the interests of the U.S. So we know precisely that he will respond as violently as he can if he needs to, or make the necessary threats that he needs to. On the other hand, with regard to the soundbite that you just played, it pretty much again plays back to what he did with regard to NATO, where he asked everybody to pay up. And but in the end, obviously, it came out to the benefit of NATO, and frankly, any positioning that he does, wherein he removes the focus of the U.S. from any other area, and so that he could actually fulfill a more good pivot to Asia, is something that I would actually look forward to.
What do you think Trump would do in his first day in office? He did say he would try to end the conflict in Ukraine within 24 hours. He did say he would let Elon gut the federal government. What do you think? I mean, in listening to him, what do you think he would do first?
I really have no idea. But what's it?
That's the thing. He's a big unknown still. Even though this is the second term.
It's more like no idea in the sense that he did promise a lot of things, but we do know what are in his powers, and what's in his powers would be the executive orders. And what could be done within the executive orders would be, number one, immigration, number two, with regard to the tariff rates, and perhaps other matters that have to do with for example, the fuel. Whether or not you cut back on the bureaucracy and the regulation with regard to the digging of oil and all of that, so that hopefully will have an effect on the lowering of the fuel prices, which also again will have an effect on inflation. The other matters that you mentioned, that he did mention, he will try to do on day one, which is with regard to Ukraine and the other, talking to Putin. Of course, that obviously will take time. But what he can do with regard, again, to an executive order is to stop the sending of money to Ukraine, which he has promised to do. Now, if he does that, that's going to be quite a huge development.
You know who else is supposedly close to President Trump? Former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Yeah.
They had good relations, right?
Si Bato,
Yeah, and
masaya
he came
ngayon.
here. Trump came here in 2017.
And they seem to be quite chummy.
Senator
right?
Padilla, masaya din.
Oh, yeah?
Allies niya, no? Former
Okay,
President
so
Duterte.
I guess they're thinking this might give them leverage that baka it might,
Because a lot of people are also
Mapayagan
afraid
ng
of
US.
the effect of President
maybe
Trump
they'll
on
throw out the ICC case. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah,
here,
because
but,
they're
but,
saying he could affect NATO. It could affect so many things.
But maybe the idea there is
The ICC.
former President Duterte might run to former President Trump
For
for
help?
Do you think that's far-fetched?
I think that's far-fetched. For so many reasons. I don't think he has a record of actually interfering in other people's politics. And as I said, he has a good relationship with President Marcos anyway, and the team that surrounds him. I don't think will. He has as I said, he has a better team right now, particularly in foreign relations. So I doubt pretty much that he would rather.
One thing that's changed within these hours is the Bitcoin price, crypto stocks.
Yeah.
Bitcoin price hits record,
All-time
crypto
high.
stocks surge, dollar soars, stocks rally. Those are
Basically,
the highlights of finance.
markets have priced in Trump and
Is it because he's a businessman or
because he will.
or that the election was
very
smooth.
business-friendly policies as he did the last time. Right, and he's a crypto believer. That's why.
Yeah.
So.
Something to do with the regulation on
Yeah.
that. They're
But we're gonna
really
come-
looking at that.
We're
But
going to
yeah,
come back to you on that, what he does on the first day. We're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much for joining us, University of the Asia and Pacific School of Law Dean, Professor Jemai Gatula.
pausing now for a quick break. Right after that, we will be giving you an update on Typhoon Marce, where it is, where it's headed, and how strong is this typhoon. Keep it here on One News. You're back on the big story here on One News. All right, straight to the weather. Here's an important update on Typhoon Marce. It has maintained its strength as it continues to move across northern Luzon. Maximum sustained winds from Marce have been clocked at 150 kmh near the center with gustiness of up to 185 kilometers per hour. But the concern right now with this typhoon is that it remains slow moving, which means that its effects will be felt longer in affected provinces. Pag-asa has raised signal number 3 over the northeastern portion of mainland Cagayan, where Santa Ana and Gonzaga are located. Signal number 2 is up over Batanes, the rest of Cagayan, including the Babuyan Islands, the northern portion of Isabela, Apayao, the northern portion of Kalinga, the northern portion of Abra, Ilocos Norte, and the northern portion of Ilocos Sur. Meanwhile, signal number 1 is up over the rest of Ilocos Sur, La Union, the northwestern portion of Pangasinan, the rest of Abra, the rest of Kalinga, Mountain Province, Ifugao, Benguet, the rest of Isabela, Quirino, Nueva Vizcaya, and the northern portion of Aurora. The center of Typhoon Marce is estimated at 295 kilometers east of Apari in Cagayan. Strong winds and rains from its circulation may already be felt over northern Cagayan, Batanes, Isabela, and Aurora tonight. Typhoon Marce is forecast to make landfall and traverse the Babuyan Islands or the northern portions of mainland Cagayan, Ilocos Norte, and Apayao, or pass very close to these areas from tomorrow afternoon to Friday. Pag-asa is also warning of life-threatening storm surges with peak heights exceeding 3 meters in the next 48 hours over the low-lying or exposed coastal localities of Batanes, Cagayan, including the Babuyan Islands, Isabela, Ilocos Norte and Ilocos Sur, and La Union.
In other news, the driver of the SUV with the Senate protocol plate that was caught using the EDSA busway has surrendered to authorities. Angelo Edpan apologized for the November 3 traffic violation that went viral on social media.
Ako po ay nagkasala. Ako po humingi ng pasensya. Hindi ko po ninais na makasakit sa enforcer na pumara sa akin. Sumasakit kasi yung tiyan ko, sir. Medyo not feeling well ako noon, sir.
But for Senator Raffy Tulfo, it should not be the driver of the SUV who should apologize. Tulfo urged the SUV owner to surrender and face possible sanctions. Tulfo said that based on his own investigation, the vehicle is registered to a company named Orient Pacific Corporation, which is a subsidiary of the Welex Group, which is owned by the family of Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Senator Gatchalian has yet to comment on this, but recall that when the story broke, he was the first to say that the vehicle in question was not his.
Kasi si driver, sumusunod lang sa utos ni VIP. Bakit natin palagi iniipit yung malilit na tao? Dilis lang itong si driver, ang pating yung nasa likod. Related ito sa isang senador. Pero hindi yung senador ang sakay ng SUV na yan at that time.
The LTO has said that the protocol plate used by the SUV was fake and not issued by the agency. As chairman of the Senate Public Services Committee, Tulfo is considering investigating the issue.
Oh dear, that's going to be interesting and awkward.
It's going to be so
we were
awkward.
busy with the U.S. elections the whole day, but we got to get down to that.
To this story,
To this
yeah.
abuse of power.
That was it. We'll see where it goes.
And what more important, the issue there as well is that they weren't listening to the traffic enforcer, the female traffic enforcer.
Almost running her over, and you
Yeah.
can see it on video. All right, that's all the time we have for tonight. Until tomorrow, that's it for the show tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.